Mr. Chairman, I'd like to modify the agenda, if you see fit, to add a discussion item at other for a potential letter of support for this committee.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Adoption of the agenda is complete. Thanks to Jim for sending out January 13th and February 10th minutes. I looked over them. Did everybody get a chance to at least briefly go through them?
Yes, sir.
Did anybody see any glaring errors we needed to correct? All right. If I have no discussion on the minutes, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving January 13th and February 10th minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And chair votes aye, by the way. All right, number 5 is public comment. So this is an opportunity for anyone in attendance. Kim, I don't know, is anybody online? Okay, so this is the opportunity to make public comment. Don't everybody jump up at once, please. Okay, appears we have no public comment. Old business, let me just give you a brief update on the strategic plan. The Board of Supervisors at our meeting last Thursday, we did our strategic initiatives updated for the year. And I did not get any really direct guidance from them, other than we're gonna maintain our economic development focus, which is what we're doing. They did add 2 new categories. One is the RSA program, which Alan's gonna discuss today, and that'll be basically coming through this committee. Mainly because people working on it are on this committee. And then the other issue was the grant writing thing, which maybe we can talk about that next meeting. Molly, you wanna talk about that? So those are some of the general direction we got, but we got no specific direction. So I think it's good to the next meeting, we'll talk about this, talk about where we want to focus, what areas this year, and what opportunities might be coming up. So we'll postpone that. That'll be new business next month. All right, under new business, we are fortunate today to have the Director of Economic Development from Culpeper County, who has extensive experience with economic development, including data centers. We spoke with Brian a couple of years ago when we started investigating data centers. And Tracy, I'm gonna let you introduce him, since you work with him.
So I've worked with, I guess, 2 or 3 directors from Culpeper in the past, and Brian's just taken the lead and gone far above and beyond anything they'd seen. So I think part of what we want to see is what he did and how they got there, and what we can do in our area.
Well, thank you. Brian is going to give us a presentation, and we're gonna have an open conversation period, and we'll take as long as we need on this. Brian? Good afternoon, thank you.
Test. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me, first off. Really appreciate it. I am a local government junkie, so I always appreciate when I get to go to another local government administration building and see how you all have set up. So this is like I'm a little kid in a candy shop when I get to go to a new one. So I appreciate the time and appreciate the conversation before. Obviously, you're our neighbors to our south, so always appreciate the work and being able to bounce questions off of Tracy, and always willing to answer any questions that she might bounce off of me. So thank you for having me. Want to talk to you about the Culpeper Tech Zone. Just to give you a little bit of background to level set, we have an incentive policy that is in our ordinance that's called the Technology Zone. That is an incentive policy where a defined area that we will incentivize for a specific industry. Our industry happens to be data centers, data processing. The Culpeper Tech Zone, same name, just tech, is more how we market that and how we look at that. We look at our data center industry to be its own kind of living, breathing organism that we need to adjust and help and push and pull and however that might be. So sometimes you'll hear me talk about the technology zone, which is an incentive policy. Sometimes you hear me talk about the tech zone, which is just the industry in general. It seems like I'm splitting an atom, and I am, but those are the two things. Just to give you some background, our neighbors in Louisa, they did a technology overlay district, a TOD. A lot of counties new to the data center industry do that. We did not have that opportunity because we already have the industry, and we can't really mess with our tax rate because we're already collecting, and I'll get into what we're collecting, but we're already collecting revenue from the data center industry. To grow that and to be competitive in today's market, you need a more competitive tax rate. If we were to lower that, we would just be giving away money. So that's why we went technology zone, and we've tied some of our planning, which is a whole other thing, planning to the technology zone. All the technology zone is a defined area. We say these parcels, we are incentivizing. Planning and everything else says, if you're in the technology zone, we'll allow you to do this. If you're not within, so that's how that works. If you have any questions as we go, please feel free to shout them out. I'm also very amendable. This is what I've done for the last 4.5 years. I'm happy to go any direction that you might need. So to give you a little background, we have two existing. We have Swift and Equinix. Swift came in 1986. That's the federal, you use Swift every time you use your bank. You send money, it goes through Swift. They have 3 locations in the world, 3 data centers in the world, us, one in Asia, I believe it's Hong Kong, and another one, I believe it's Switzerland, could be Belgium. They're based in Belgium, but Switzerland, Belgium. Obviously, you would take those 3 localities with Culpeper and put them all together. The idea is, that was a joke, but the idea is they go as the sun goes. So Europe's working, and then it comes to America, where we are. We got that facility because we had the Federal Reserve Building, which is Mount Pony, which is now the Library of Congress. That was previously a Federal Reserve building. So we had a lot of fiber connectivity because of that, which brought us Equinix, previously known as Terramark. They are next door to Swift. They came in 2008. They're about 600,000, a little under 700,000 square feet. Equinix installed a network access point. It's called a NAP. We're the NAP of the Capital Region. The NAP, think of that as a subway system. Think of that as a subway station to get you into the Great Underground. So between Culpeper and Miami, you can get there lickety-split using the network access point. That brought us more fiber connectivity. With that, from 2001 on, you see we have Cloud HQ, DataBank, EdgeCore, and then Stack Infrastructure is purchasing or in the process of, they've purchased or they're in the process of purchasing additional campuses, the Verizon, Kaiser, Culpeper Tech campus, as well as Copper Ridge. We're about 10 million square feet. That number is hard to get. We probably could build over 12 million square feet. We do not anticipate they will build all 12. Square footage does not matter in this game. The reason why it doesn't is the smaller they get, the computers, that means they're putting more expensive computers, and counties make money off of things. So if they want to build half the square footage but change their capital expenditure by 3 times, I will gladly take that trade-off. We have 4 hyperscalers. There's no freshwater cooling that in Culpeper. We're using recycled water reuse, air-cooled, or closed loop. So the most difficult thing about this conversation is when you go and Google, like, how much water does a data center use? Whatever you find out is absolutely correct. But it might not be correct in Culpeper. It might not be correct in Louisa, wherever. It's all going to be varied. We're just not a water-cooled community. We do not have a lot of extra water available. So we are air-cooled or closed loop. Our recycled water reuse is using the sewer that's been treated. We have about 3 million gallons. We're using about 1 million of that for recycled reuse. That will work for about a campus and a half. So yes, if you want to evaporative cool, it's what it's called. Evaporative cool is they bring in cold water, it hits the heat, it evaporates into the atmosphere. That's what freshwater cooling would look like. We're not participating in that. We are very open. We have been very open with every company that calls. That's my first thing. I like to fail fast in economic development. And I tell them, I don't have water to cool. That's a problem. Move on. And they move on, or they go, cool, we'll go air-cooled. The difference between air-cooled and closed-loop, hold on, let me give you a little background. Air-cooled is like, probably we're using a heat pump in here. We're blowing in cold air, hot air, that's what air-cooled is. They're blowing in cold air, pushing out hot air. Closed-loop would be like a radiator, but reverse. It'd be cold water versus hot water, so think of how a radiator works. The difference with those last two is it just uses more electricity. On any campus, every substation is 300 megawatts. They want to use every available megawatt for computers. If they can't, they're using it for electric. That's less computers they're putting into yours. So it's a difference of like 10 megawatts, and every megawatt's about $10 million of capital investment. It's changing how much they can put in. We expect the Culpeper Tech Zone will be about a $20 billion capital investment. We expect about 2,000 jobs coming from that, with 9,000 indirect jobs. So those are induced jobs. That's where the numbers start getting a little fuzzy, because it's like, well, I have a job now. Do I hire a landscaper? Does the landscaper hire a bookkeeper? You see how that's where the induced jobs. So that 9,000 is a number that our study came back with. I know there gets a lot of pushback in that. I understand how that goes. And then we currently require now conditional use permit for data centers outside of the tech zone. So if you're outside of the defined technology zone, you are required for a conditional use permit. So how do we get here? This is where Culpeper is. I've circled the town of Culpeper. This works a lot better when a community is not neighboring, so you guys will find this a little bit elementary. Zoomed in a little bit more, still there's a red circle over at town of Culpeper, and then this is where we are on a map. This is what it looks like, which I'm sure you all are pretty aware. It's pretty green. We like that. We want to keep that. What we've done is we've taken 1,000 acres and designated that for data centers, which equates to about 0.4% of our entire county. The big thing about Culpeper is just because you say yes doesn't mean you say yes forever. And just because you say no somewhere doesn't mean you have to say no forever. This is the power that you have is to designate this. We started with, and actually, Cloud HQ should be covered up. I apologize there. But we started with Swift and Equinix. That's about 600,000 square feet. That was when I got to Culpeper, September 2021. Since then, July 2024, you see how we got to about 11.3 million square feet. Again, I think that number is probably going to be closer to 8 million. Might even get a little bit more shrinkage there. But you can see how that has all kind of come about. All right around where Equinix is. So, Equinix, there we go. Equinix is right here. Swift is right here. Those are existing. DataBank is the site that you currently see under construction. That is along this is Route 29 and this is Route 3. DataBank's under, you'll see a lot more construction there now because they just started putting in steel last week. So a lot of activity going on at DataBank. We expect there to be 400 construction workers on site, at least for the next year and a half. We have food trucks there every day. We have 2 food trucks there every day servicing. So those are meals that we were not serving before at a time that the food trucks were not operating before. We're trying to figure out, as I always say, I think of the tech zone as a slam dunk. I've never dunked a basketball. I'm only 5'11" and 3/4. I wanted to be 6 feet, but I never quite made it there. So I wanted to dunk a basketball. I'm going to dunk this one as many times as possible. That's really the goal. And that's one way we viewed, hey, this is a way we can dunk the basketball again. How can we get our food trucks? We're now looking at, we don't have enough food trucks because we're anticipating Stack to start construction on one of their campuses. Well, now, can I do 4 food trucks a day, 5 days a week? might not. So now we need to figure out how to launch more food trucks. How do we get the people that want to, like, how do we start that curriculum? And that's work that we can do with the Carver Center as well as our Techno Education Center. One thing I do want to note in the tech zone is CTech, which is the Culpeper Techno Education Center, and Germanna Community College. I'll talk a little bit about that later. So a big question that always comes up is power. Why did this work? This had an existing power corridor already servicing. So this green line going up and down the screen is the Gordonsville-Remington line. It goes from Gordonsville to Remington, very creatively named. Coming off of that is the Mound Run line. It's currently a 115 kV. I know more about power than I ever thought I would. It's currently a 115. It's going to be upgraded to a 230, which a 230 is probably what you typically see, and you go, oh, that's a transmission line, not a distribution line. A distribution line, 34, 5 kV or smaller. So you see the 230, it's 125 feet, I believe, is the right of way, maybe 150. Don't quote me on that. So we're going to have one of those. The thing about 230 is once it goes somewhere, it has to come back. It has to loop. So with that, we need 3 230s, which means we need 2 structures side by side. 3 will come into Culpeper, 1 will come out. And that's what this red line will follow the green line. So I believe that's green. It's hard to tell on either of these screens. So this line is getting upgraded from 115 to a 230, and then we'll add the red line for the second structure, and those can be co-located. But we felt, and that's to power, Dominion that's to power the entire tech zone, 3 230s. Data centers come with strings attached, high-powered and tall strings attached. So it's just the nature of the beast. They need power to operate. Yep. The proposal is for it to terminate on the eastern side of the county near Richardsville. So it would not affect. The 765 is extremely high. Dominion does not have a 765. And from my understanding, although I know more about power than I ever thought I would, I do not know enough about power. From my understanding, the 765 can't co-locate. So that's why they talk about a trailblazing. But that's to get power from Campbell County to the north, where just terminating in Culpeper.
So, do you have the 2 original data centers? Are they government ones as well? I mean, is it service full government computers?
So SWIFT is a bank, so we don't collect. Banks are exempt from business personal property. So therefore, any equipment that a bank owns that is personal property is not charged. SWIFT, though, we do collect revenue from. I do not know who their tenants are. SWIFT's a little bit different than some. They will own what's called the shell, and then the equipment will be owned by a tenant. And they're kind of an original hyperscaler, so they might have many tenants, where now we're seeing more and more in the industry that a single tenant is buying the entire building. There they have multiple tenants. AWS works a little bit different. AWS is a cloud provider, so like they own the equipment, they own the building, they own the whole thing. And then you and I might, we might have a business and we need server space and we rent a rack, rent a server, whatever that might be. We will, correct. AWS is outside of the tech zone, but yes, we will. They're full freight. That is not an incentivized project nor a part of the technology zone. Computer equipment, yes. The computer equipment, that $20 billion, probably a third to almost half will be real estate, and then the rest is all equipment. And our real estate rate's 43 cents. Our computer equipment rate's $3.50. So some impact. Construction jobs, I did mention that. Some of our developers believe that they'll construct it with 400. Some believe there'll be over 1,000, approaching 2,000 per building at a time. That is people that previously were not coming into Culpeper that are either staying in Culpeper. I actually do know some of the data bank construction workers are staying long-term in Madison County, so you guys are collecting some of that meals tax, as well as if you have a transient occupancy tax. We do not have a TOT in Culpeper, but so there's construction workers, they're eating lunches, they're picking up things for their spouse on the way out of town, they're going gas stations, like, that's all revenue generating. The electrical linesmen, we're trying to figure out how we can supply more of the linesmen that are constructing the 230 lines, because that's going to take about a year. The groundwork jobs, it's pretty phenomenal to see 85 acres all touched, all under construction. That's pretty, it was overwhelming for me. I've looked at this on a map for 4 years, and then to actually be on DataBank's property and like turn around and be like, 85 acres is a lot. And we anticipate, this isn't going to be built overnight. We're probably looking about a decade worth of construction. So yes, the construction jobs are quote unquote temporary, but it takes about 22 to 24 months to build each building. So if a campus is 3 buildings, you already know that's 6 years worth of construction, unless they do it at the same time. If they do it at the same time, that just means more construction workers have to be on site. Full-time employment, that's always something I love to push back on. People always say, data centers don't create jobs. They do, they absolutely create jobs. They just don't create as many jobs as we're accustomed to per square foot. They build a really big building, work for 4 shifts. It's a 24-hour facility. So if I were to get a manufacturer on any of these sites, we'd all be high-fiving. And I'm like, it's 50 to 75 jobs. We'd be high-fiving and having a grand old time. I'm still bringing the 50 to 75 jobs. I'm just doing it with a couple $1 billion. So, and these jobs are not all of them require college education. Not all of them, most of them are, we're talking upper, to over 100,000. So, just below 100,000 to over 100,000. These are well-paying jobs. Contractors are also, that's another thing that people don't always realize. We're talking about, we had a data center come, they were looking at Culpeper, and we showed them our Culpeper Technical Education Center. If you haven't been, it's phenomenal. It's a jewel of Culpeper County. And we were showing them all of the, if you've been in the building, it's divided in half. We were showing them all of the computer stuff we have, computer science and the CAD and all that. They're like, hey, we got kids that know how to use computers. And they were like, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, can we talk about the other side of the building? And we're like, well, the other side is just carpentry, electrical, and HVAC. And they go, well, we're building a giant building with a lot of HVAC, electrical, and carpentry. And that's hard to hire. And the thing is that the company's not going to hire them. They're going to hire a company that's going to hire them. So like they know it's all a trickle-down effect because of them. Contractors are just the same. HVAC contractors will be assigned to Culpeper, will be on Culpeper regularly, but will not be employees of our companies. So that's just something that we're excited about. It's just something that the conversation about data centers we sometimes lose. They don't create jobs. They absolutely do create jobs. It's just when we're used to looking at a manufacturer that builds 100,000 square feet and has 100 employees, that's easy for us to wrap our head around. We can see it. We see the cars. When they build 2 million square feet and they have 100 employees divided over 24 hours, now we're like, oh, that doesn't look like a lot of cars at one time. So, the most expensive real estate based off 2025, I have the top 9. The top 8 are all data center related. Only 2 of those have a completed building, number 8 and number 1. And number 6 had a partially complete building. Once that's complete, once the first building's complete, it will jump to number 2 at 113 million. Doing my math, I am not it's easy to figure out tax assessments and then do the tax rate. Vacant data center land, just land that we say is permitted for data centers, is collecting. We are collecting 1.1 million. DCs in total, we're collecting 1.9 million. Number 9 is the Target Shopping Center in Culpeper. So like, we can do a bunch of those shopping centers at 20 million per, or, you know, you can build a data center, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate taxes. Computer equipment in calendar year 2024, we collected 9.7 million for computer equipment, which at that tax rate, the FY25 tax rate, that was about 25%. In CY25, which is for us fiscal year 26, in December we collected 11.2 million. That's again another 12 cents, equivalent of 12 cents of real estate tax rate. So it's about 28 cents. That's with the existing computer equipment in Culpeper County. That number used to be smaller. It was about 6 million when I got to Culpeper. We're now bumping up to 11 million. And this is before we see the real splash. The real splash with the Culpeper Tech Zone, it is an incentive. We invest 10 million. If you invest 10 million and you hire 10 employees at or above the prevailing average wage, which is determined by the state, it's basically the average of the people that live in the community. For us, it's about 50,000 to give you a number. We will give back 40% of all taxes paid for 5 years. The big thing about that is it's taxes paid. Think about how often you replace your personal computer and you're not using it 24/7. These servers are typically not lasting 5 years. Sometimes they are, not always. If you take the equipment out, we no longer incentivize it. And then you bring in a new piece of equipment, it's going to be more expensive, full rate, and not get incentivized. So that's one reason why we appreciated the Tech Zone incentive. Our economic impact study estimated that we will collect $100 million in annual taxes by calendar year 2030. This was after our revenue share agreement that we have with the town of Culpeper, after the CTZ incentive payment. And again, the Culpeper Tech Zone represents 0.4% of our entire county. It's about 950 acres. So this was our annual. You can see in this column here how it goes down. It goes based off of our projections. Again, these are all projections. So you take what you can get, right? We'll be really interested once we get to 28. That's when power should start getting delivered, and 29, and we'll be able to really narrow in that projection. When we built this in 25, you know, we're still waiting for the SEC to rule on our power solution. So we're kind of dependent on that. The big thing, though, I always want to tell communities when they ask me to talk about data centers, we're not only data centers. I am the data center guy in Culpeper. I'm also not the data center guy in Culpeper. We have 3 other programs that we work on. We do business attraction in general, so we're still trying to get manufacturing. Not that has stopped. It's just gotten really, really hard over the last few years. We're still doing Be a Culpeper Local is our small business development. We did not do small business before I got there. We added that in, which is the Be a Culpeper Local program. Choose Culpeper Farms is like our small business, but it's ag focused. So we added that about 2 years ago. And then Work in Culpeper, we obviously did not do workforce development. WINK is our workforce development. Tomorrow, we're having our first class that we are offering. The county is offering for our businesses for free, and that's emerging leaders training. So if they have managers that are rising through the ranks and they want to give them some training, we're providing that through Germanna. You can see the work that we do through Be a Culpeper Local. We have the Culpeper County Conference, which is a half-day summit that we provide. Facts and Snacks is our monthly business education series. And then with CCF, we do our farm tour. We have our website. And then we also have Sips of Culpeper, which is our beverage exploration trail. In 2024, we were nominated for the top annual economic development award. It was not for our work with data centers. It was for the work that we did with Choose Culpeper Farms. And in 2025, we were nominated again for that same award, but this time for Sips of Culpeper. It's 2 things that I'm really proud of that we've done, and very. I always love when people say it's very humbling. I mean, it's very humbling, but like we're very just proud of the work that we did to get there. But again, I don't view these as individual. We have to invest in our farming community to stay that green, as well as bring in data centers to help with the tax revenue so that there's not the pressures that happen with the farming. Our small businesses need to be strong. You know, I already talked about our food trucks. our gas stations, our convenience stores, all those need to be strong so that when we get this influx of cash in our market of these construction workers, that we can take advantage of that, that our entrepreneurs can take advantage. So it's not only going to focus on data centers, it's data centers plus all these other things to make our economy work the best. Oh, and then Work at Culpeper is our workforce development program. I already told you about one of the things that we're doing. The George Carver Food Enterprise Center is our commercial kitchen, and we're trying to figure out how we get more kitchen startups. And then the last thing I want to say about CTEC, we are currently examining how, we're stepping it in, how can we deliver construction workers, as many as possible? How can we deliver operators, as many as possible? Our goal is that our students literally walk out of their school and can see their job. Nothing would make me happier than that. And our electrical students, one of the contractors hired, I think it was 15 or 17. It was over 15, so I'll feel comfortable saying 15. 15 electrical students last year. It's a class of 20. They want 20 this year. It was the number one employer at signing day. They hired the most Culpeper students. So that's all I got. I'm happy for any questions. Yeah.
As far as data centers go, with large buildings and things of that nature, if they were to pull out or sell, would the county have any regulations on what could go in or what would be done with that type of space? Because they're very dedicated spaces. And this reminds me, up in Pennsylvania, they had the Daily Planner building. Huge building. I don't know if you remember, pre-2004, everybody had a Daily Planner. And this building had tons and tons and tons of printing equipment and so much square footage. And in 2004, when the iPhone came out, they were done. And they were done overnight. And tech has this ability to just very quickly change hands. So in planning for something that, yes, is 4 years down the line, sure, we may still have all these. We may not. Is there anything that you're doing to protect yourself because you're committing so many square footage to this that, not necessarily putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
It would be lovely if it lasted that long. But what is your fail-safe for that type of thing?
Yeah, from a zoning perspective, we did have a few that tried to say, like, we could be data centers or warehousing as their use. That creates a lot of challenges because warehousing obviously brings in transportation issues that a data center doesn't necessarily affect.
Of course, there's different niches to each
Yeah,
one that
so
you
then
can't.
it's really hard on, staff viewed that really hard on planning staff. Like, how do we do a rezoning where it could be a data center or a warehouse, which just felt so, they look the same,
Totally different infrastructures.
but yeah.
Power needs
so
versus transportation.
The short answer is, they'll have to go through rezonings. They'll have to figure out some type of decommissioning.
So there'd be a process that would take some number
It
of.
would be our normal planning process.
Right.
There's not a, protection, quote unquote.
Sure.
I will say though, having square footage, as someone who doesn't have any square footage, vacant, I have one, I have the Old Continental facility vacant, but for so long I did not have any square footage. So if I can get more square footage built, and available, but it's gonna, these buildings, the other thing too though is those Daily Planner warehouse, the cost to build them is kind of a cost of doing business, right? The cost to build these is so high that it's such an investment. I'm gonna be shocked if they build and then immediately close down. I mean, we're already seeing, it's
Sure.
possible.
I mean, I've just seen so many big companies pivot real quick, and you're left with counties that it's, they go, okay, it's your problem, and because they're global industries, if there's no recourse set up, there's no fighting them.
It's a difficult,
Sure.
it's a difficult thing to navigate because I don't quite know how you can do it cleanly. Because the idea is we wanted to land in data centers because our transportation network in this area, it would be very difficult to add warehousing.
Sure.
So it's like, no, we want you to only be a data center. To then also be like, well, if something happened, like how do we pivot? That's a difficulty. It's gonna have to be a conversation that hopefully
That's next year's problem, right? Okay.
that's
Okay.
a 2050, 2060, these are probably at least a 20-year, we're probably at least a 20, 30-year asset. So that being said, there's a lot of 20, 30-year assets right now in data centers that are getting upped. You know, they're retrofitting and doing that. So that's where we're going there.
Brian, controversy right now in General Assembly is the possibility of sales tax on data centers. And I know there are several northern Virginia counties that are lobbying hard against that, claiming that it would kill the data center industry in Virginia. Is that, where are you at on that as far as?
Concerned. The sales and use tax is an incentive that the state provides. It just generally, it's an incentive that it provides so that they're not paying they're not paying as much sales tax as you and I buying a computer. You know, we go to buy a computer, we pay sales tax. Data centers are able to go buy servers and not pay the full cost of the sales tax. There are some that view that as the Commonwealth is passing up on $1 billion of annual. On the flip side, the industry's flourished in Virginia because of that. The jobs that have been created, the state makes money off of people, right, off of our income taxes and sales tax. So the state we view it as it's a cost, only seeing it's a cost. However, 20 plus other states have implemented this to copy us. We were the first to have it. And Georgia just came out with a report. They just added it. They underestimated how successful it would be. And it was 3 times I believe the number was 3 times more than they anticipated, which means some people view that as they gave up 3 times more than they did. I view that as 3 times more investment happened in the state of Georgia than they anticipated from having this incentive. So that incentive, the governor's come out and said she thinks that would be detrimental to the business community. Right now, we're just not seeing other projects move. We are seeing data center projects move. I do have concern that we'll see some planned developments not happen because there are 20 plus other states that have said, we'll take your investment. We are in a we're getting to a point where being the capital of data centers has had its advantages to continue, but if you give someone pause to figure it out somewhere else, they might figure it out somewhere else. So I don't know where we're gonna fall on that, but it's definitely real.
Brian, I have one for you. We'll move away from data centers for a moment. I see your Choose Culpeper Farms program. I imagine that's maybe focused, whether it's crops, cattle, whatever. What I wanted to ask you about, because I noticed you all have natural gas that runs through your locality. Does that have natural gas? Does it have a distribution? Because you have a lot of nurseries and things on Route 3.
Yeah, they do have local distribution for that. I wish I had more natural gas or more.
Well, I was going to ask you where I was going with that question, because TC Energy runs through our county, but it's transmission. And I was going to see if you didn't, how, going about achieving distribution. I know if you don't have it, usually a big user of it, if it was going to be a data center, they can overcome it. They have bigger pockets than a locality has.
Yeah.
But trying to get that established where it doesn't follow the road here like it does a lot in Culpeper, did you have any knowledge or experience in actually building out some new distribution area?
I am way out on a limb. I did not climb trees as a kid, but I am way out on a limb answering this question, so I'll do so carefully. In Fluvanna, my previous locality, we looked at adding local distribution. The T.C. Williams line goes through Fluvanna County and goes through their growth area. And we were like, how can we get local distribution? In 2019, that number was like $12 million to tap it, just to literally create the substation, if you will. So it's not inexpensive. I believe the only greenhouses are the ones on Route 3 that have local, and they're just off of, they're about right here. We have like 2 million square feet of greenhouse space. We're one of the largest in the state for it.
not Bright Farms, you already have them. I think it was Better Farms, the guy that, the owner that located in Louisa.
Yep.
But when he spoke at that meeting, I think it was Central Virginia Economic Partnership meeting, it was about, where's the natural gas? Because LNG and tank farms was not the answer, so.
Yeah, anytime you touch gas, it gets expensive. So, you think about if you're to transport it, when you connect, there's a cost. When you connect to the to the truck, that's a cost. When you land, you connect to the tank, that's a cost. So, anytime you're touching it, your costs just increase dramatically. It is greenhouses. I've been fighting for more greenhouses. They're by right. They're farming, so they're by right in every zoning district in the county. Greenhouses, I've had people walk away from deals because they had to. Their margins are so tight. They had to do 5 feet of leveling, and they walked away. It was 5 feet too much. It's crazy how flat you need to be. Your natural water needs to be good. They can lagoon, which is good. They can send it straight to the stream because it's all natural. And then you got to do the natural gas. So it's like you got to find a flat, gas served, non-industrial because they're not going to pay the industrial costs. It's man, the Venn diagram, many circles.
Well, I've seen 2 examples. So again, you all have, and I knew this from my days in Culpeper County, but Bright Farms is your example there. Then you got like one in Vienna where they go vertical. So
Yeah.
it's just,
Vertical has, not to get too far off topic, Vertical has been pretty tough. I don't know, Arrow Farms has struggled in Danville.
Yeah.
They went bankrupt. Plenty has struggled in Chesterfield. They had to reorganize. Vertical is challenging. And I asked one of our older greenhouse growers, and he said, when I'm selling a head of lettuce for $1.25, it's really hard to make tremendous capital investment. Because at the end of the day, my lettuce is only $1.25.
right.
So it takes a lot to pay that off.
Thank you.
Anything else for Brian? Brian, we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, glad to.
We'll move on to the next agenda item because we're at close to time, and that's our presentation of the RSA project. Alan?
All right. So, see if we get loaded up here. Ta-da. Thank you very much.
I tried.
Good enough. All right, so quick update here. Let's say we've talked about this a couple of times, that our relationship with RSA and some of the policies that are in place required some attention for our economic development. When I say relationship, I don't mean that we're considering that. We want that to be ongoing, but how some of these things are handled. So I've prepared kind of a timeline of where we started and where we want to go with this. At the end of the day, as we seek to get some businesses to locate here and some more commercial activity, we had to have some transparency with our water and sewer connection policies and what's available and infrastructure. And when we started this about 9 months ago or so, that just wasn't there. So as we've worked with the RSA board representatives, and the Board of Supervisors has clarified their priorities, we've come to the point we are today, which is we now have copies of their policies. We're working on RSA adopting more transparency measures and publishing those things so developers coming here can know what the process is of connecting to utilities. We started with no idea where infrastructure was or where service was available unless you just happened to know where the plumbing was. And the map that's on the screen now, and all of you have a paper presentation in front of you with this information on it. We now know where service is available today. So in the green that you have up here is the wastewater service, and in the blue is where the water supply goes, and you'll notice that it does not always overlap. But that's what's available today. I ran this by the RSA board, and at our last joint meeting of the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, Pete Elliott had a look at it and said that this pretty accurately represented where service was available. And so he's running that through his channels, and we'll get back together where we will adopt this or something similar as today's service connection area. Conversation will continue on where service availability will go in the future for infrastructure build-out. RSA does not have any interest in paying for expansion of their infrastructure. They're happy to maintain what's there as they can get money, but it will take somebody who wants to build something to extend the lines. And so, most notably, for the residential part, we'll get either Mr. Daniels or Mr. Esch or somebody similar will likely seek to extend service over into the Fishback Road area. For commercial purposes, it will take a developer working off of Gentry Drive or some of the other parcels that are to the south along 29 there to extend service to be able to develop those spaces with public utilities. Alternatively, the county can consider what the priorities are, and if we as a county would like to fund engineering and infrastructure planning to get that paid for either by our tax dollars or by grant money, and see what we'd like to do there for that. So as far as the efforts go, we have a couple of goals set. Immediately, we're working on formalizing our maps, what's available today for formal adoption, as well as where our expansion areas are. The other critical component that we're working on, and we don't have a resolution yet, is their EDU management policy. So who buys capacity and when? So RSA's policy, they say that you have to have a shovel-ready project before you can buy capacity, the right to connect. We know that that's not always been the case because there's currently about 95 wastewater EDUs that are privately held. RSA and their attorney are working on policies for either sunsetting those that have been held forever and not utilized, so the rest of the public has the opportunity to utilize those capacity, or impose a significant monthly service fee to make it expensive to hold those things, so you can contribute to the infrastructure maintenance, or you can return your tap that you purchased. So we're working on that. We will schedule a follow-up meeting with the board members. We had one before they went into a retreat on the 2nd of March, so that way Mr. Coppage and Mr. Elliott could present to the RSA board at large the county's goals and how they feel about our initiatives and what's palatable for them, where we can meet on some of these goals, and we'll follow up to see where they landed. David Jarrell, who is their operations manager, also provided me with some GIS data that we were told did not exist. And so we're very pleased to see that now we have a GIS overlay of where the water lines are, where the sewer lines are, what size those lines are. That is not public-facing, nor do we really want it to be, but for planning efforts, when somebody comes to my office for a project, we now know where and what size line those things are. And so Mr. Weekly is helping me with analyzing what that means and what additional modeling we need to be able to help developers go do that. So thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your background. Additionally, let's say we're working on a little bit more transparency and publishing some of the information through RSA's website, if they'll adopt that, so we're working on it. And then medium-term priorities, after we get infrastructure plans ironed out, we want to align that with the county's comprehensive plan So that way we can align where we want to put infrastructure with where we want growth to actually go. And maintaining those maps and seeing what modeling we want to do. And then long-term, of course, we're going to establish some kind of a framework to go with our comprehensive planning for how this needs to go in the future. So that's where we are with RSA policies as far as it relates to the county. There's a brief update as you go into your packet on where we are with the approval of their site plan for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. That's progressing as these projects often do. They're currently working on their third submission to address comments that we've made to make sure they're meeting our ordinances. I think what they're down to now is some distances so VDOT can evaluate what they're doing, which I don't think will be a concern. But they are in a residential district, so they have to submit a photometric plan to show that they're not shining lights on what will eventually be houses next to them. So that's all we're really waiting on for them to commence the development of their wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And so that's where we are with RSA.
And I'd like to add to that, what we don't know yet. I've spoken to both of our RSA Madison reps individually. We believe the outfall was actually part of the financing they just secured, because our concern all along was like, well, you can build a nice new shiny treatment plant, but where does that treated effluent go? So it's my understanding they have obtained financing for that. The question becomes, as part of our timeline, have they obtained, or when do they plan to obtain easements to do that? Because that will, dictate the pathway. I do appreciate the timelines on it. The reason why I stepped out there, because Mr. Gentry here, who's probably going to kill me for recognizing him in a public meeting, does a lot of the commercial in the county. I've known that over the years when I was a board member. So we want to make sure any lots, not just exclusively lots that Mr. Gentry may represent, but there's been a lot of things approved in the past by the board, but they are pending water and sewer. So Mr. Gentry, if I may, one of the things we've asked RSA to look at, while certainly they may take the position of any expansion of infrastructure should be a developer's, cost to construct or whatever. Okay, that's their policy, whatever. But for example, where property aligns across from Food Line, we know sewer ends at Food Line. There's a pump station there. Have we done any modeling to see the hydraulics? Can it handle anticipated? We can say those lots across Food Line could be a restaurant or it could be a healthcare facility. They can make some assumptions to see if that pump station is ready to go. Because you could find someone that wants to write a check to build infrastructure from there to there, but is existing infrastructure handling that? So we're aware of that, and again, not just singling out development that you represent or people you represent, anything that you see that may be in that existing service area, which is what you see in blue and green, but things that may exist outside of that service area that say, go 29 south, or excuse me, north as far as, say Gate Road, or, do we consider the south that goes, down to currently, at least from a water perspective, at the intersection of Wolftown Hood and 29, or even further out to what is the Lace Factory, which was serviced by a line that comes in from Greene County's water treatment plant across the river and there. So we are trying to be fully focused on that. As we had another county speaking of economic development, we are limited resources. And the resources really that we have to track and follow is the water and sewer. So not specific to you somewhat, but just wanted to let you know, because I know we've had conversation about infrastructure. So anytime in between these updates, that's your guy right there, Mr. Nichols, or my phone number.
Phrased it real well.
Yeah.
The general constraints. I'll tell you, you all are at a, in my opinion, this is just, I've been here 51 years, so I'm still outside, okay? I love going home every day, seeing the mountains and having deer in my yard, okay? I'm a lucky boy. And the older I get, the less I know. I have feelings, I have experiences. You don't want to hear me. Yeah, the older I get, less I know. I have feelings and experiences. I've been involved in economic development primarily here in Madison and Greene for 30-plus years. and I look at how different counties have taken on economic development, either by default or being proactive. And I guess one of the things to say is, it comes down to the people that live in the county. What does the general consensus of the people, what would they like to have as far as their quality of life and goods and services? And you can have lots and lots of goods and services, but does that equate to better quality of life? These are questions for the Planning Commission and the board and people and the citizens to give you all guidance on. But I think we're at a pretty pivotal point with the doubling expansion of the going from what, 80 to 160,000 gallons per day, or 400 EDUs. And that is something that is, I think, in my opinion, a very critical situation on how you all approach it. I was in this building a number of years ago when a developer and then former landowner here in Madison, Mike Cercio, came to Madison County, and he had a vineyard up there in Ayler and different things, and he came down and he was promising this and that. And he left after a few years because the bag was empty, okay? But I was sitting here one night, he came before the Board of Supervisors, and he was buying the Fuller Track, okay? And so he got the first part of that Fuller Track zone business, and the back, basically R3, multifamily. So the lot of multifamily, she's cutting me off already. You there? Okay. Anyway, I was here when Mike Cercio asked.
She'll trade you out.
Asked. Can you hear me now? Okay.
We hear you fine.
Asked to have the property zoned from agricultural to R3 multifamily. And so the board says, well, what do you want to do with the property, Mike? He says, well, I don't know yet, but I figure I'll speculate a little bit on that and see what happens in the future. The board said, anybody have any questions for Mr. Cercio? Nope. They all approved it. Bam. Would that happen today? Likely not, because zoning is the biggest step. You have out there off of Fishback, part of the old Fuller Track, you've got, what, 30-plus acres over there that was zoned by right R3. So any use under an R3 zone is by right. The only thing that the county can do, quite frankly, is on site plan. The zoning, that ship's pulled away from the dock. You have no control over that. And if you just look at saying, okay, well, how can the county approach, which was done by a board before you, and how's the county going to handle the economic and social impact of that, you need to wrap your minds around that, in my opinion, and be very mindful that what I would say, look to your counties to the north, to the east, and the south, and seeing what a lot of, well, I'm not going to say about Culpeper, a lot of the commercial development in Green was there just because someone wanted to do something and did it. They didn't have a big master plan. They've done real well the last 15 years. But prior to that time, before a lot of that land was rezoned for different things, it was there. The county has to sort of always be chasing the tail. And I'm concerned that if the county does not look very closely at what's already in place, and if they have some control over that, it's going to come back and bite the quality of life and our taxes, what it costs us to live here, and the quality of life here. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, and I will say this. Rapidan Service Authority, I've dealt with them, oh gosh, for 30-some years. And just a short story, many years ago, I represented a farmer in Greene County, Silas Reynolds and his wife. And I was involved in bringing a lot of the commercial development there in Greene, where the food line is right now, for instance, and all that. I met Mr. Reynolds out there as he was changing a section blade on a sickle mower. Introduced myself. I was much younger then. and we ended up becoming friends. I ended up representing that family on the sale of a lot of their land, getting it rezoned to commercial, different things. But we couldn't, the Food Line developer would not come to that site unless we had sewer. So myself and 3 other guys, one of the other people was E.C. Compton, who was on the EDA in Green. He was in his 80s at that time. I don't know if anybody knew him or not. But we formed a group called RASP, Ruckersville Area Sewer Project. The only thing we had was letterhead. And we made a deal with Dudley Patty, who was head of the RSA at that time. He said, Bill, if you guys can go out there and get $1 million put up front and get people to pre-purchase sewer EDUs capacity. Back then, they were $2,300 a pop. Now, 10,000, okay? So he said, you all go out there and get $1 million up front, then RSA, working with the EDA in the county, will go ahead and do the engineering. We'll go to the county, then we can get float a bond so we can put the system in. It took us 5 years to do that, all volunteer. Because in the Board of Supervisors at that time, one of the board members, his good buddy, had the only grocery store in Standardsville. They didn't want any competition. So after 5 years of politics and trying to get people to migrate to what was for the greater good, we think, E.C. Compton used to be the head of Farmers Home Administration in Virginia. He was able to get an application in for a community development block grant for $750,000. The Board of Supervisors turned it down 3 times. The 4th time, we brought so much heat on them in the newspapers and press, at the 11th hour, they went and signed it. Okay, they took the money, the cost of the project went up, they brought the sewer line from Standardsville up to Ruckersville. You know, that's just one small, so look at the development there. There's a lot of residential development follows that. Or commercial, sometimes you have to have the rooftops for the commercial to come in. So, and that's sort of standard. You know, there was enough demographics involved for, I was involved with the Food Line coming to Madison many years ago. So they come where the numbers work for them. Now, you have over here off Fishback, what will be the impact of, if that's built out based upon what's already improved? I think it's real important for the county to really look very closely is what is the realistic impact of that? How much money is coming in from the residential units in relationship to business? And then not only the income from that, what about schools? What about fire, rescue, social services? There's a whole lot of moving parts. And I'm not saying you need to do this or that. I'm just saying you all are there, the decision makers, and this, decisions you make in the next few months could very well, will impact it forever here in Madison County. So I think there's a whole lot of moving parts. Start looking at very closely. Now, Rapidan Service Authority, I've always gotten along with these folks, okay? But they were in a lawsuit in Greene County for several years, a lot of acrimony there, and so they were, basically, they left Greene County. So now Rapidan Service Authority serves 2 counties. Rapidan Service Authority, the butcher's finger is on the balance on that board. 2/3 Orange, 1/3 Madison. So Madison's a redheaded stepchild, okay? So Madison can get voted down each time if it doesn't, if the RSA board doesn't like what. So I'm saying is, just be mindful about the decisions, the policies, and decisions that Rapidan Service Authority may end up doing, even though we have 2 good people on the board. That's only 1/3 of the board. And then the other 2/3 of the board, those people have chosen a much different path as far as development. I mean, it's like Northern Virginia up there off of Route 3. And it's going to get a lot worse up there. So that impacts it. And the RSA's fiscal policies, everything else. So anyhow, I won't take up any more of your time right now, but I'm real concerned about that. I represent the Whelan family off of Gentry Drive, and that's an embarrassment to me. I told Mr. Whelan, when he decided to name that road after me. Look, I've been indicted in 2 states. The federales are going to be after me in no time here, okay? But he went ahead and did it anyway. Very wonderful family. So we finished we have phase 1, 2 or 4 lots sold. We have another 20-some acres there. But then the additional land, as you all well know, a number of years ago, before the Board of Supervisors really had a good grasp of actions they may take, they unilaterally rezone everything 300 foot back from each side of 29 going south up to Sheets Business, B1. So it's all zone B1. Now, I would like to think that part of the planning process, so it sounds like, I don't know, I think it's very important for the Madison County to get involved in the planning process of this water and sewer, and just not RSA. If they, the butcher's finger, the thumb is on, not in Madison County, it's in Orange County. And to say, okay, if you have 400 additional EDUs that are coming online, you know, how can that benefit Madison County and just not a small area as far as multifamily development, as far as future business development?
Bill, and I don't want to be rude. I'm glad you're here. And what I would say is,
You just turned off my mic.
no, I don't have that. I don't have that authority. My wife would turn me off before anyone else speaking, because my link. No. I don't want to take it that way. I appreciate you being here because I've known you for a little bit. And I learned a lot, even things that escaped Madison, such as the Highway Safety Institute years ago. Encourage you to come to meetings regularly if you like. If your schedule doesn't allow, Alan's your guy, or you've got my number, you know. And I appreciate you being here because I've told many people, you know, I don't get paid to say this, you are the commercial guy that's come here. So please stay in touch with us. It's important that we, and the board established that we work with RSA. I know Tim's made his announcement of retirement, so they'll have to pick a new general manager there. But we feel like we've come a lot further than we've had, even my days on the board, by getting information and being able to speak to EDUs. Yeah, my lecture bill is going up on the additional EDUs that will come from the 240,000 if they ever expand. But I know Mr. Jewett's going to want to move us along. They've got a BOS meeting here at 4. But please come back or stay in contact with us, because it is a working, as you identified, citizens, planning commission board, it is a working together effort to make sure economic development is what we would all like to see. So thank you, Bill, for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry we couldn't get it. We'll get you a working mic next time.
Well,
Yeah, we'll get you a working microphone next time, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, folks, we're have to dispense with C&D. Jim, you can give us an update next meeting when we should have a better idea of what tomorrow's actually gotten past us. The only other, very briefly, Alan, you mentioned the letter of support.
Yes, Mr. Jewett, but say I will be super brief. I had a real estate agent reach out to me about the parcel up on the screen here, which is right behind the town of Madison, significant frontage on Thrift Road. And she said, what would the county like? Now, I don't know how desirable this particular parcel is for commercial activity because it's very steep. It would take a lot of engineering to do that. But I did express to her that the county, but say, is looking for commercial activity. This is right along the Highway 29 corridor, close to town. It is split zone. The very front of it is R1, the rest of it's A1. And so she said, well, I can steer marketing, that she typically tries to steer marketing one way or the other towards what the localities want. She said, so if you would like to see business zoning or, you know, commercial use of that space, could I please get a letter of support from your Economic Development Committee, your Planning Commission, or your Board of Supervisors, any combination of the above, and we will mark it accordingly to what your desires are. And so I had talked to her 30 minutes before we came and said I would bring it up as a part of the initiative. Should the board want to think about it, do something with it, or not, those were simply my thoughts where I started.
Is the request, Alan, coming from I know this person reached out, and I just pivot them your way, because you're the appropriate person to talk to about this. But is is the ownership, which is the Smiths, I guess, asking for this? Or is this Realtor or whatever representing them, I would assume?
They're making marketing decisions.
Yeah.
So the agent is asking the questions.
So,
And so-
the initial thing that struck me, the reason why I'm asking that, because generally we'll get, I can only speak prior to you. We'll get zoning determinations if someone's looking to, sell we've had some B1 that's already existed in a building and they're trying to sell and they want zoning determination. I think we did it for
Oh, we do it all,
Path-
we do it all the time.
Pathworks down there and some others, but, are they looking for what the board would consider zoning allowance or?
It would require a rezoning for any significant commercial activity there. And so,
For those who are not familiar, I mean, that, as you can see, that's Thrift Road, that's just past the Legion and in that area, a little further down the road.
Well, my suggestion would be is that, as we have the agenda meeting coming up Friday, is probably this should be a point of discussion for the next joint meeting. If you all
Sure.
agree with that, planning commission, board of supervisors. And then I think we can at least have direction on or make a decision. I don't think it's a big deal, but we
yeah,
need to get everybody in this building.
I invited her to bring her clients to preliminary development. It's probably the right spot for that discussion, to make a soft pitch of what they want to do. They have representation from all of those bodies there to talk about it and see what the idea is with a more loose timeframe.
Okay, and then we'll disseminate that to the other two boards. Sounds good, at least there's somebody interested in something. I think in the interest of time in our next meeting, unless there's something else pressing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.